Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My phone missed my face by an inch. It hit the couch and slid to the floor. I'm Jake and I'm 29 and shaking. Across from me, my girlfriend stared like she might bolt. Her chest rose fast while she locked on the screen. My notes app glowed between us like some silent accusation. She jabbed the glass once and the phone lit brighter. What is this supposed to be right now? Her voice scraped over every word like it hurt to speak. I watched her eyes move while she read the first line. Her mouth tightened and she lifted the phone toward my face. You wrote this about yourself. She almost spat the last word. I cheated on my former fiance. She read it like a verdict. My stomach lurched so hard I thought I would throw up. I had forgotten that was the first line I wrote. Back then I wanted to shock myself into honesty. Now it just blew up in my lap like a trap. You told me you hurt someone before, not like this. She lowered the phone a little but her glare stayed. You made it sound messy but not full-on cheating. Each word hit like she was flicking me in the forehead. It is not that simple. My throat tightened before I finished. Even now writing this, I want to hedge everything again. Back then on that couch I reached for the phone. She pulled it away fast like I had tried to grab her. Do not even touch it. Her fingers wrapped tight around the case. Her eyes dropped back to the text and narrowed even more. Forced to cheat. Her eyebrow lifted like she smelled something. That is the line that really gets me right now. Hearing my own words out loud made them sound fake. I had written that alone, trying to explain it to myself. Now it just sounded like something a coward would post online. I hated that she heard it before I could even edit. You expect me to date a guy who writes this? Her laugh came out sharp then died in the same breath. Once you cross that line you stay on that side. I flinched because a part of me agreed with her. I told you I made a huge mistake years ago. We talked about it when we first got serious. I heard my own voice and it sounded thin and rehearsed. That was the version where I was half guilty and half victim. We talked a little before. She shot me a look that burned right through. You never mentioned a hotel or some boss or blackmail. Each new word stacked on my chest like another brick. I realized how many pieces of the story I had cut. Telling it to her, I always trimmed the worst angles off. Writing it alone, I went full damage report and exaggeration. Neither version was honest enough to stand here in our living room. Now both were colliding in front of us and ripping things open. I do not date cheaters. She said it like a rule carved in stone. I do not build a future with someone who hides this. My mind jumped straight to our lease and our weekend plans. All the normal stuff suddenly felt fragile like props in a play. Please just listen. I heard the panic in my own plea. If you hear everything and still want out, I will accept it. She folded her arms and leaned back but did not leave. Then start from the beginning. Her jaw clenched like she braced. The beginning was a night I had tried to bury for years. Every time I touched it in my head, the air changed. Sitting there across from her, I felt that same shift again. I opened my mouth ready to drag us both back to it. I did not know if telling her everything would save us or finish us. I just knew I had run out of edited versions and half-truths. So I took a breath and started the story that still ruins me. Emma's fingers locked around my wrist as we entered. Come on, I want you to meet Lauren. My stomach tightened before I even saw her face. I did not know why yet, but my body did. Lauren turned when Emma called her name and looked straight through me. She smiled at Emma first like she owned her future. Then her eyes slid over to me and stayed a little too long. Glad you could make it, she said, grip firm on my hand. Emma talked fast about numbers and targets in some project. I nodded along and watched Lauren watch me instead. Her attention never really left my face, which already felt wrong. Back then I told myself I imagined it, now I know better. Come grab a drink with me, Jake. Lauren's hand brushed my elbow as she moved past. It sounded casual enough for anyone standing nearby. Emma pushed me gently. Go be nice, she likes you. At the bar, Lauren leaned closer than she needed. So wedding soon, she asked, voice light like small talk. I mumbled something about dates and saving and family pressure. My cheeks grew hot because I felt like I was on trial. You seem solid, she went on while stirring her glass. Reliable, calm, good for someone like Emma. I waited for the compliment to land and settle. Instead, she pulled her phone out and tapped a few times. Thing is, reliable guys sometimes get tested, she murmured. Ed. She turned the screen toward me and watched my reaction. An email thread filled the display, Emma's name right there. The subject line mentioned client records and correction needed urgently. I read the first lines and my chest instantly tightened. Emma had sent the wrong file to a large client. The follow-up email mentioned a possible violation of some rule. I felt my pulse jump into my throat and stay there. This, if escalated, becomes a serious problem, Lauren said softly. Her fingers drummed once on the phone, then went still. Jobs disappear over things like this, licenses too. My hand curled around my drink so hard my knuckles ached. She told me it got fixed, I managed to get out. I heard how weak that sounded the second it left. Lauren shrugged one shoulder like none of it touched her. She fixed what she could, the record still exists. I know power moves are not always dramatic. Sometimes they land in the middle of a regular conversation. This was one of those quiet hits right in the gut. I understood in 1 second that she was not just chatting. I oversee the report, she went on without blinking. I decide what gets highlighted, what gets minimized. Her gaze locked on mine and did not move. That is a lot of responsibility and flexibility. My mouth went dry and words stuck together. I wanted to tell her this felt wrong already. Instead, I asked if Emma was in real danger. I hated myself immediately for sounding that desperate. Lauren lowered the phone and slid it into her pocket. For now it is between me, Emma, and you. Her lips curled like she had already won something. I can keep it quiet, keep her growth plan clean. I should have walked away at that exact moment. I should have gone back to Emma and told everything. Instead, I stood there locked in place and listened. Fear does that, it nails your shoes to the floor. There is a room here under my name tonight. She said it like we were talking about traffic. She pulled a key card out of her clutch and twirled it. If we get along, I forget the whole glitch. I stared at the card and could not breathe right. You are joking, I finally managed, my voice scraping. Her eyebrows lifted just a little and then flattened. Do I look like I am joking about compliance issues? She pressed the card into my palm and folded my fingers. Think about how much you care about Emma's future. Her nails grazed my skin, short and deliberate. Come up after things wind down, we will talk privately. Back at our table, Emma lit up when she saw me. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into a side hug. Lauren in a good mood, she asked, eyes searching mine. I forced a smile and said it went fine enough. Inside my head, everything rattled at once and would not stop. I watched Emma laugh with coworkers and lean into stories. Every time she reached for my hand, the key dug deeper. I could not find one sentence that did not sound insane. At some point, she checked her watch and groaned softly. I have to stick around a bit longer, she muttered. Can you hang or do you want to head out? I blamed an early morning and kissed her temple quickly. Text me when you get home, she said while straightening my collar. Her eyes were tired but proud and trusting. I told her I loved her and felt my throat burn. That part still hurts to remember because it was real. In the lobby, my phone buzzed before I reached the doors. Unknown number first, then the second buzz with a message. Room is ready, do not keep me waiting too long. My hand tightened around the phone until it hurt. I could have blocked that number and walked outside. I could have turned around and dragged Emma home. Instead, I just stood next to the elevators, stuck. The key card felt heavier than anything I had carried. I pressed the button and watched the floor numbers change. My reflection in the metal doors looked like someone else. Numb, robotic, exactly what a coward looks like in real time. Even now, I want to reach back and slap that version. When the doors opened, I stepped in and tapped the floor. My stomach rolled as the elevator started moving upward. Every small jolt felt like another chance to leave. I stayed anyway, eyes on the glowing numbers above. The hallway upstairs was quiet, which somehow made it worse. I walked slowly, counting door numbers with my jaw clenched. Halfway down, I stopped and leaned against the wall. I remember thinking, if I turn back now, she fires Emma. The door Lauren mentioned waited at the very end. I took the key out and stared at the tiny logo. My hand shook hard enough to make the card rattle. I knew what crossing that line would make me become. I lifted my fist and knocked once before I could rethink. There was a short pause, then movement on the other side. The handle turned smooth and certain, no hesitation at all. That was the last second I could have walked away. The door swung open before I dropped my hand. Lauren leaned against the frame like she had all night. Her eyes flicked to the key card between my fingers. "You came faster than I expected," she murmured with a small grin. I stayed in the hallway a beat too long. My feet refused to cross that line on their own. If I walk in, this happens for real, I thought. She stepped aside without asking again and left the path clear. "Relax, you look like you are heading to surgery." She turned her back on me and walked farther inside. That move told me everything about who controlled this situation. I stepped over the threshold and let the door close. The sound of the latch sliding into place made me jolt. I remember that click more than anything else from that night. I could have unlocked it again and walked straight out. Instead, I just stood there like a guest waiting for instructions. "Do you want a drink, or are we skipping that part?" She tossed the key onto the table with a quick flick. I mumbled something about driving and waved my hand weakly. My brain was already stuck on the disaster email she held. She walked closer and pulled her phone from her pocket. One tap in the same thread appeared like a threat. "Just so we're clear on what is at stake." She enlarged the attachment and turned the screen my way. The message from compliance filled the top half. Words like violation and audit jumped out first. My chest burned while I read the lines again. Below, Emma's apology sat there like a confession under glass. "I submit this first thing tomorrow unless I change my mind." Lauren spoke quietly, but there was nothing soft in it. The summary I attached decides how ugly this looks upstairs. She locked the screen and slid the phone onto the table. I reached for the back of a chair to stay upright. "You could give her a warning instead," I tried. A tiny laugh escaped her, sharp and amused. "Warnings are for people who never inconvenience my department." I know how pathetic I sounded next. "Please do not ruin her career over one mistake." The word "please" tasted like sand in my mouth. She watched me for a long second like I was entertainment. "You want to protect her, I understand that." She stepped close enough that I felt her breath. "That is what I am offering you tonight, actual protection." Her hand rested flat on my chest and stayed there. Everything in me wanted to push her arm away. Instead, I froze while my heart hammered against her palm. "I just want this to disappear," I whispered before I could stop. "Yep," I basically handed her the knife and turned around. "It can disappear," she replied while tracing a line downward. "Nothing escalates, records stay buried, and Emma keeps climbing." Her fingers stopped at my belt and hooked there. "All I need from you is some cooperation and discretion." I stepped back and her hand dropped for a second. "This is not cooperation," I managed, voice rough and shaky. "This is you using your job to get me in here." It sounded almost strong until the last word cracked. She tilted her head like she studied a nervous animal. "Call it whatever helps you sleep," she answered without blinking. "Just remember, I am not the one who me sent confidential data." That line landed harder than anything else she said all night. "Why me?" I blurted, "because none of it computed." "You could pressure her directly if you wanted leverage." Lauren's eyes narrowed like I touched a nerve. "Because she is terrified of disappointing you already," she replied. Hearing that knocked the wind out of me in a weird way. She knew exactly where to hit us as a couple. "You think she would forgive you if she lost everything?" Lauren let that question hang between us like a knife. I pictured Emma packing a box at work in silence. Her calling me from a parking lot with her voice broken. Blaming herself, blaming me, maybe both, I had no idea. The image grabbed my throat harder than Lauren ever could. "I do not want her knowing about any of this." The words poured out before I even thought them through. "There has to be another way to fix the situation." Lauren stepped in again and did not leave space this time. There is no formal path that ends nicely for her. She slid her hand behind my neck and pulled me closer. What we do here never appears in any report. Her lips brushed my ear and every muscle locked. This is where people ask why I did not scream. Why I did not shove her away and storm out. I have asked myself the same thing 1,000 times. The ugliest answer is that fear and shame can paralyze completely. I muttered I do not want this while my jaw shook. She backed up half a step but kept her eyes on mine. You want Emma safe though, or am I misreading you? She lifted the phone again and hovered over the forward option. My body reacted faster than my brain did. I reached out and grabbed her wrist on instinct. Fine, I heard myself say, flat and dead inside. I let go. A second later, but the moment had already shifted. Good, she replied and lowered the phone with a calm smile. No need to make this harder than it has to be. She placed the device screen down on the table deliberately. Now we take care of each other, then I take care of her. I will not walk you through every motion after that line. I remember flashes, not a full picture, which feels merciful. Whenever my mind goes back there, it skips like a scratch track. What I do remember clearly is how my hands would not stop shaking. At one point I went so still that she pulled back. You are here because you choose Emma over your pride. Her words dropped one by one and pinned me in place. Do not waste this by acting like a martyr now. That sentence still makes me nauseous when I write it. Back then I clung to it like some twisted excuse. If I convinced myself I was sacrificing for love, it hurt less. Later I realized I had used Emma as a shield for my cowardice. After it ended, I walked straight into the bathroom. My legs felt rubbery, my hands could not grip the handle. I turned the water on too hot and stepped underneath, still dressed. I just needed noise to drown out my own thoughts. Do not take all night in there. Her voice floated through the half-open door, relaxed and casual. You have an early morning with your fiancé, remember? I leaned my head against the wall and wanted to punch something. Staring at the tiles, I kept repeating one line. She keeps her job, she keeps her job, she keeps it. It was the only way I could tolerate standing there dripping. I convinced myself I had taken a hit for the team. When I came out, she was already dressed again. Her phone was back in her hand, thumb moving across the screen. Already adjusted the report, she remarked like we finalized a deal. Nothing escalates upward, minor correction, no follow-up. I checked the display from a distance and saw the draft. My eyes scanned for Emma's name and stopped on the summary. Lauren had rewritten the whole thing like a minor oversight. The thread I saw at the bar was smoothed down to a footnote. That is what you wanted, right? She slipped the phone into her pocket and watched me carefully. My throat worked, but no sound came out at first. I finally managed a nod that felt like signing a confession. She walked me to the door as if we were old friends. One hand rested on my back lightly while we moved. Go home, be sweet, do not mention tonight, everyone wins. Her nails tapped the door once before she opened it for me. Out in the hallway, the air felt too thin. My shirt clung to my skin and my heart would not slow. I walked to the elevator without really seeing anything. Every step away from that room felt both better and worse. Inside the elevator, I watched the numbers drop toward the lobby. I remember thinking I had just crossed into some new version of myself. Not single, not exactly engaged anymore, something broken in between. I did not cry, I just stared at my reflection and hated it. By the time I reached the exit, my phone buzzed again. A short message from Lauren flashed across the screen. Remember, you and I never had this conversation. Right under it sat an unread text from Emma asking if I got home safe. Her engagement ring skidded across the counter and hit my wrist. I grabbed it on reflex before it dropped to the floor. Do not touch that, Emma snapped, eyes locked on my hand. My fingers opened and the metal clinked down between us. She stood in the kitchen doorway, still in her work clothes. Her jaw worked like she had been clenching it for hours. We need to talk right now, not later, not after dinner. That sentence landed like a warning siren in my head. I tried to joke it off because I am stupid under stress. What happened? Another disaster email, or did someone eat your lunch? She stared at me like I had spoken another language. Do you really think this is about some spreadsheet right now? She pulled her phone out and unlocked it with quick taps. My name showed in a message preview from some contact I did not know. Under it, there was a blurry picture attached to the conversation. She opened it and turned the screen so I could not dodge. It was me in that hotel hallway next to Lauren. Same shirt from the party, same stupid dazed expression. My hand hovered near the room door, her body very close. You did not need subtitles to understand the moment captured there. Recognition finally, Emma muttered, watching my face instead of the photo. Somebody from the office sent this to me this morning. She zoomed in until the room number was clear above our heads. You told me you went straight home that night, remember? My mind scrambled for an explanation that did not sound insane. I can explain, I started, which is basically a cell phone. Her laugh was short and ugly, nothing like her usual one. People who did nothing do not start with T. Hat sentence. She dropped the phone on the counter next to the ring. So did you sleep with her or not, Jake? There it was, the question that sliced through everything else. My throat closed and my body went weirdly cold and hot. I wish I could tell you I confessed cleanly. That I took a breath and just laid out the truth. Instead, I aimed for damage control like a complete coward. It is not what it looks like in that picture. You are at a hotel room door with my manager. Her voice shook on the last two words but stayed loud. You expect me to believe you were doing performance reviews. She shoved the phone closer, like maybe I had missed the details. I tried a different angle because panic makes you stupid. She cornered me about your mistake, I blurted out. Instantly her eyes flared like I had slammed a door in her face. My mistake, she repeated slowly, like tasting something rotten. I realized I had just exposed the thing she hated most. I only mean the file issue, I rushed out, hands up. She had that email, she used it to trap me there. Even as I spoke, I heard how thin it sounded. You told me it got cleaned up, Emma said through her teeth. You promised it would not follow me around the building. She pressed her palms into the counter like she needed grounding. You left out the part where my boss used you like this. Tears gathered but did not fall, which somehow felt worse. Answer the actual question, she went on, voice dropping. Did you hook up with her in that room or not? I could not hide behind word games anymore without looking monstrous. Yes, I forced out, barely louder than a whisper. The air shifted in the room like someone opened a window. Her shoulders flinched even though she seemed ready for it. She stared at the ring instead of at me for a second. When she looked back up, there was nothing soft left. So you cheated on me with the person who signs my reviews. Every syllable landed like its own hit across my chest. I am standing here trying not to throw things at your head. I grabbed the back of a chair because my knees actually dipped. She threatened to report you, I pushed out in one breath. She showed me that thread and said she could ruin everything. I felt like if I walked out she would hit send. Emma's eyes narrowed, not forgiving, just recalculating the damage. So she blackmailed you into bed, she said almost flat. And your big brave move was to go along with it. Her mouth twisted like the words tasted poisonous. I froze, I answered, and that part is horribly true. I thought I was protecting you, protecting your career. I paused because even hearing it I wanted to punch myself. It felt like there was no exit that did not wreck you. She pushed away from the counter and paced once across the kitchen. You had an exit, she burst out, jabbing a finger toward the door. You walk back to me at that party, you tell me everything. I would have taken humiliation over this in a heartbeat. I had never seen her this furious and this controlled together. You decided for both of us without actually asking me. She stopped and faced me, arms wrapped tight around her body. You let her touch you and then came home and hugged me. I opened my mouth, closed it, and hated the silence between us. I showered there because I could not stand myself, I muttered. It came out sounding like I wanted credit for rinsing guilt. Do you want a trophy for basic hygiene? She snapped back immediately. Honestly, I get why she did not care about my trauma language then. From her side, it looked like I used her almost as an excuse. That is the part I cannot get past, she went on. You keep saying you did it for me like it is romantic. Hearing it framed like that made something inside me twist hard. I am not proud of any of this, I said louder this time. I have been sick over it since that night, constantly replaying it. I gestured helplessly at the phone, the ring, the mess. She shook her head once, sharp, like cutting my speech off. You came home, kissed me, and went to bed next to me. Her voice softened on that last part, but not kindly. Do you know how disgusting that makes everything feel now? I remembered lying awake that night counting her breaths. Back then I convinced myself staying quiet kept her safe. Hearing her describe that silence as contamination gutted me. It forced me to see the same scene from her side. Did you plan to ever tell me? She asked, eyes drilling in. Or was this going to be your private little martyr secret? Her hands trembled now finally, which somehow scared me more. If that photo never surfaced, would you still be lying? I wanted to say I would have confessed eventually. That the guilt would have eaten through the walls by itself. The real answer sat heavy in my throat and would not move. She watched the hesitation and understood everything without hearing it. There it is, she whispered, almost to herself but not quite. You were content as long as the story stayed in your head. Her gaze flicked to the phone like it had betrayed both of us. Now you are only honest because you ran out of hiding places. I tried stepping closer and she backed up so fast she hit the fridge. Do not touch me right now, she warned, holding one hand up. My body stopped like she had hit a switch. The space between us suddenly felt like a canyon. What do you want me to do? I asked, voice scraped raw. I honestly did not know what repair would even look like. What does making amends even mean when the line is this crossed? I sounded desperate and small and very aware I deserved nothing. She stared at the ring, still lying alone on the counter. I wanted to marry a man I trusted without checking his stories. Her eyes glistened but still refused to let tears fall. Right now I cannot even picture you without seeing that hallway. The worst part is I understood her completely in that moment. Every time I closed my own eyes, I saw the same still frame. Her manager beside me, my hand near that door, my expression frozen. I knew that shot would haunt any good memory we still had. I need you out of this place for a while, she said. My brain cannot breathe with you standing in every doorway. She picked up the ring, turned it once and dropped it again. I do not know if this is permanent, but it is real. I asked if I could at least help pack my things. She shook her head hard, shoulders tight, eyes on the sink. If you start zipping bags, I will lose it completely. I need you to leave with nothing but your keys and wallet. That instruction stung more than I expected, which sounds dramatic. It made me feel like some stranger she kicked out after one date. I grabbed my stuff from the bowl near the door without arguing. Every step felt like I was walking off a cliff on purpose. When I pulled the door open, she spoke one last time behind me. You know how people talk at work, she said in a low tone. They are going to know what you did before I finish this week. Her voice did not shake on that prediction at all. I turned halfway, stupidly hoping for some crack of softness. She was already scrolling on her phone, jaw set in stone. Not texting him, not checking on me, just bracing for fallout. I realized she was preparing for a different war than mine. Out in the hallway, my own phone buzzed 3 times in a row. 2 messages from a mutual friend, 1 from an unknown number. The preview showed my name next to that hotel picture again. The story had already started spreading faster than I could think. Looking back, that was the day the label really attached. Not the night in the hotel, not the elevator, not the threat. The moment the ring stopped belonging to us, I became the cheater. And that version of me is the one my current girlfriend met years later. She shut the laptop I was using for work with one push. Use the old one, she said, eyes on me, not the desk. The one from before I even knew you, the one with her in it. Hearing that last word made my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. I have not opened that thing for years. My voice trailed off because even I heard the dodge in it. She crossed her arms and leaned against the shelf without blinking. If your story holds up, you should want it open right now. That line hit harder than any insult would have. I walked to the closet where we keep stuff we never touch. My hand hovered over boxes before I dragged one out. I already felt sweat on my neck, and we were not even at the emails yet. The old laptop came out heavier than I remembered. I set it on the table and plugged it in with clumsy hands. She did not move closer, just watched from a few steps away. The distance between us felt bigger than the whole room. When the login screen finally appeared, my fingers stalled. "You can change your mind," I almost said, which is insane. Instead, I typed the password I swore I had forgotten. Apparently, my memory works great for everything except accountability. She exhaled sharply when the desktop loaded. "Search her name," she said, not raising her voice. That low tone scared me more than any yelling. There was no anger flare now, just cold focus. I clicked into my old inbox and opened the search bar. The letters of her name looked ugly as I typed them. Results popped up in a long list, way more than I expected. My vision tunneled for a second when I saw the scroll bar. "Wow," my girlfriend muttered, stepping in closer at last. That is not a small number of emails for one person. I wanted to argue about automated notifications, reports, system stuff. None of that would change how it looked at first glance. "Open the night of the party," she said, tapping the screen. I clicked that thread, the one I knew by heart but never reread. There was the original compliance note T. He follow-ups the warning. It felt like watching a recording of my own arrest. She leaned over my shoulder, silent, reading line after line. The message where Lauren brought up escalation, the phrases about breach. Then the one where she hinted at informal solutions if needed. I felt my jaw clench so hard it ached while we watched my past. "Scroll," she whispered, like she might spook the words away. She did not have to ask twice because I wanted out of that section. We hit the part where I replied that I would come up later. My stomach lurched again, remembering how calmly I typed it back then. Her hand covered her mouth as she read that sentence. "So you basically confirmed the appointment," she said quietly. No threats described, no refusal, just "see you soon" energy. Her eyes slid to mine, searching for something I did not have. I was scared out of my mind. I answered too fast. "I know how that sounds while you are reading it. Like I am slapping the fear card on everything to avoid blame. Maybe there is truth in that, but it is not the whole thing." She kept her gaze on the screen instead of arguing. "Open the next one," she said, tapping the arrow. The conversation from the morning after came up in a new window. My pulse jumped when I saw my own words at the top. There it was. "Hope you're doing okay after last night. I keep thinking about you." I wanted to rip the power cord out when I saw that line again. It hit me now even worse than the first time I wrote it. Her hand dropped from her face to the table with a dull smack. "You keep thinking about her." She spaced the words out like she was measuring each cut. "Is this what being forced looks like in your world?" I scrambled, literally felt my chest tighten like a fist around it. I was trying to keep her calm, I pushed out, almost choking. If she felt important, she would be less likely to retaliate. It sounded like some slimy PR spin even to me. "Then write that," she shot back, stabbing her finger at the sentence. "Say you are terrified about my job, say anything like that." She dragged the laptop closer and squinted at the lines again. "There is nothing about me here, it is you and her in this one." I opened my mouth, then shut it, then opened it again. Honestly, in that moment back then I had liked having leverage too. Not the sex, not the power imbalance, just the illusion of control. That is the part I never tell first, the part that rots. I wanted her to see me as human. I tried, hating myself. Not just some pawn she could toss away after using. I rubbed my face hard, trying to scrape the shame off. That message is me trying to manage a bomb with flattery. She stared at me for a long beat that felt endless. "You reached out," she finally said, voice low but clear. "Days after, when you were safe at home, you initiated contact." Her eyes glossed with tears that refused to fall again. I clicked the thread and dragged the bar down instinctively. More messages appeared, shorter, drier, but still there. A quick reply from Lauren about keeping what happened discreet. Another from me saying I appreciated her handling the report. "Oh my God," my girlfriend whispered, stepping back like she got hit. There is an entire follow-up here, not just one stray text. She looked at me like she did not recognize my face. This is not a single moment of panic. This is a mini relationship. The word relationship stung worse than cheating somehow. I shook my head fast more than once like that could erase it. It was never romantic, I insisted, hearing the defensive whine. It was damage control, constant damage control, nothing more. Read this one out loud, she ordered, pointing at the screen. Her finger rested on a line months later. Hey, hope conference travel is not too stressful. Let me know if you need anything. I had forgotten I even typed that, which makes me feel even grimier. I read the line aloud and wanted to disappear mid-sentence. She watched my face the whole time, not the monitor. You are checking on her trips now, she said, a bitter laugh escaping. Tell me again how this was purely about protecting Emma. There is a special kind of shame that burns hotter than anger. It is the one where you finally see yourself from the outside. In that instant, I understood why everyone called me a liar first. I had been hiding behind half-truths so long they felt honest. I convinced myself that staying friendly kept her from retaliating, I said. I thought if she saw me as cooperative, she would never reopen anything. My shoulders curled in like I could fold myself into nothing. I see how disgusting it reads now, I really do. You did not tell me a single thing about these later emails. She paced once, then twice, then stopped by the window. You told me one night, one violation, then silence forever. Her voice cracked just slightly on silence, which how hurt more. I admitted, leaning back in the chair like I was being pressed. I trimmed anything that made me look willing instead of cornered. Words poured out now because there was nothing left to hide behind. I wanted you to see me as a victim who slipped, not as someone who engaged after. She turned toward me, eyes fierce and wet. You were both, she said, every syllable steady. You were targeted and then you participated and then you lied. She let that combination hang there like a charge sheet. That mix is what I still struggle to sit with, if I am honest. It would be easier to pick just one label and camp there. Monster or martyr, villain or prey, anything cleaner than this sludge. Real life does not work like that though, and neither does trust. Do you still talk to her? My girlfriend asked suddenly. The question jolted me because I had not even considered that angle. No, I answered fast, maybe too fast, hands up. Last contact was years ago, we never met again after that. She walked back toward the table and hit search again. Type her name with this year, she told me. I did it while my heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. The empty result list finally appeared and we both stared. That should make me feel better, she said almost to herself. It does not completely, because you already filtered before. She tapped the older date filter like she wanted to punish the keyboard. You hid the worst line you wrote, what else did you slice out? I had no good answer for that. I do not know what I am capable of leaving out anymore, I said quietly. That is the part that scares me now, not just what I did. She looked at me sharply, like she did not expect that level of self-drag. You still say what I did like it is a single unit, she shot back. It is not one thing, it is a series of choices piled up. Her fingers were trembling now, and she tucked them under her arms. If you cannot separate them, how am I supposed to believe you changed? I paused, then forced myself to break it down out loud. I agreed to go up there, I started, counting on my fingers. I did not warn Emma, I stayed, I contacted Lauren afterward, I kept it quiet, I softened it for you. Hearing the list like that made my legs feel weak all over again. She nodded once, brisk, like she was marking each bullet. That is the first honest inventory I have heard from you, she said. It still does not erase the follow-up messages though. Her gaze dropped back to the laptop like it might sprout more secrets. I watched her jaw grind while she stared at the email chain. The silence between us grew thick, but not empty. Stuff lived inside it, like resentment, and maybe a tiny sliver of pity. I felt both landing on me at the same time. If you had shown me this the first time we talked about your engagement, she finally said, I would have reacted differently than I am now maybe. I would still be hurt, but at least I would not feel played. Her voice went rougher at the end, like sandpaper dragged over wood. I was terrified that the full version would make you walk, I confessed. So I gambled on a partial version and hoped that was enough. I let out a short laugh that sounded nothing like humor. That is basically cheating again, just with information instead of bodies. Exactly. She snapped her fingers once, harsh, right in front of me. That is what my gut has been screaming since I read your note. You bend the truth until it hugs you back, then call it honesty. That line sat in my chest like a brick. She was not wrong, and I hated that she saw it so clearly. This is the part where I wanted to argue about intention again. I did not, because every time I do that I lose more ground. I do not want to be that guy anymore, I said, and it sounded small. I want to be the person who tells the worst parts first. I rubbed my thumb over the edge of the table until it hurt. I just do not know how to convince you that I mean it. She thought about that for a long moment, lips pressed tight. You cannot convince me with speeches, she answered finally. You can only make choices that are easy to check and hard to spin. She pointed at the laptop again like the evidence exhibit it was. For starters, stop saying you were forced to cheat, she went on. Say you were pushed, compressed, manipulated, whatever, but not dragged against your will. You still walked into that elevator, you still typed thinking about you afterward. She held my gaze so I could not wiggle away from the phrasing. I swallowed hard and nodded because she was right. I cheated under pressure, I said slowly, testing the words in my mouth. I was scared and I still cooperated more than I want to admit. It felt like swallowing glass, but also like a step out of fog. Her shoulders slumped a fraction, just enough for me to notice. That sounds more real than Nothing you have said tonight, she murmured. It does not fix how I feel, but at least it is not a movie speech. She wiped under one eye quickly, annoyed at the moisture. Forward the entire thread to me, she added, straightening again. Not screenshots, not cherry-picked images, the full conversation. My stomach twisted at the idea of that existing in her inbox. I did it anyway because this is the mess I built. When the confirmation notice popped up, she watched every movement. There, she said when the sending bar disappeared. Now you cannot rewrite it later and tell me I misremembered. Her tone made it clear this was not about trust in technology. I hate that you need backup evidence against me, I said quietly. She gave a tight shrug that almost looked like a flinch. I hate it too, she replied. But I hate blind faith in you even more right now. That one hurt in a clean way, not a confusing way. It was the kind of pain that lands exactly where it should. For once, I did not try to soften it or make it about my suffering. I just sat there and let it sting. After a while, she closed the laptop gently, not slamming it. I am not deciding anything tonight, she announced. If I break up with you, it will not be in the heat of this moment. She lifted her eyes to mine and held them there. I need time to read this again alone, without you guiding me. She tapped her temple lightly. I also need to listen to whatever my body does when I do that. Right now, everything inside me jumps between hugging you and running. That was the most honest thing she had said all evening. It mirrored how I feel about myself most days if I am real. Half of me wants to swear I will never slip again. The other half does not trust my own memory of who I am. I will sleep on the couch, I offered, standing up slowly. Take the bed, lock the door if that helps you rest. She studied me for a second, weighing the offer. That is the bare minimum tonight, not some grand gesture, she replied. I nodded because I deserved that little slap. As I gathered a blanket, my phone buzzed on the table. A new message preview lit up from an unknown address. My chest seized when I saw the subject line, "Old matter regarding former employee." She noticed my reaction instantly and grabbed the phone before I could. Her eyes scanned the preview, then darted to my face. This better not be who I think it is, she said, knuckles white around the device. Right there, with that new email hanging between us, I realized the past was not done with me yet. She opened the email before I could even inhale. Her thumb hit the notification, the message filled the screen. I watched her eyes move over the sender line once. Then she turned the phone so I was forced to see. It was not Lauren. It came from a law firm address I did not recognize. Subject line, inquiry regarding prior conduct of Supervisor Lauren M. Under that, the preview showed Emma's last name like a punchline. My chest went hollow in 1 second flat. So yeah, the past did not just knock, it kicked the door. Read it, my girlfriend said, voice low and steady. She held the phone just out of my reach like a test. I took it carefully and scanned the first paragraph. They referenced ongoing review into allegations of coercive behavior. They mentioned my name as someone identified as potentially affected. They asked if I would be willing to give a statement. Halfway through, I realized my hands were shaking again. This is about her, I muttered, still staring at the words. Emma must have talked to someone, maybe filed something I do not know. I could not decide if that thought relieved me or burned. Keep reading, my girlfriend said, moving to my side. Her shoulder hovered near my arm but did not touch. The message explained that Emma had consented to them contacting me. They promised confidentiality and stressed that participation was voluntary. Voluntary. That word sat there like a dare in the middle of the screen. I had spent years telling myself I never had real choices. Now an actual choice stared back at me asking for honesty. Let me see, she said and took the phone back. She read slower than I had, lips moving over certain lines. Her finger underlined abuse of authority without actually touching the glass. When she reached the end, she let out a sharp breath. So Emma told them, she said, eyes still on the screen. She named you, or someone else did, and they traced you. She finally looked at me, searching my face. How does it feel to be on record as a victim now? The word twisted something in me, in a way I hated. Part of me wanted to collapse into it and stay there. The rest of me wanted to shove it away and shout I cheated. Both reactions hit at once and left me stuck between them. I do not know what I am in this, I answered. I was pressured, I also went along, I also lied. I gestured toward the L. App we had just closed. Whatever I am, it is not clean. She nodded slowly, like at least that tracked with what she saw. Either way, they want your version, she said. And however you handle this tells me more than any apology. That landed like a line I would remember for a long time. What do you want me to do? I asked, throat dry. I knew her answer mattered almost as much as mine. Join the investigation or stay out of it completely. Both paths came with fallout, just different flavors of it. I want you to answer this for yourself first, she replied. Her arms crossed again, defensive, but her eyes stayed softer. If I tell you what to do, you will hide behind that. She was right, and I hated how right she kept being. She walked around the table once, trying to shake off adrenaline. You have two histories here, she said, pacing in a loose circle. One where you pretend this was all done to you, she continued. And one where you admit you were part of the machinery. I stared at the message again, at the phone number and the signature. It was right there waiting for a call or silence. I imagined ignoring it and deleting the email like spam. I also pictured Emma sitting in some room answering alone. I should call, I finally muttered, more to myself than her. If I do not, I am lying by omission again. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my fingers hurt. I am tired of being the guy who keeps editing reality. She studied me for a second, then gave a quick nod. I am not going to stop you, she said. I also will not stay in the room for the call. Her mouth twisted. I want to hear the words later, not live. That stung more than if she had demanded to listen. She did not trust me enough to accept a summary. But she also did not trust herself to stay calm during the conversation. We were both trying not to contaminate what came next. She headed toward the hallway with the blanket under her arm. Use my phone for the call, she added without turning. I already know the number, and you will not be tempted to delete it. That small detail told me exactly how fragile everything felt. When she disappeared from view, I stared at the screen again. I memorized the digits even though they were right there. Then I hit the call button before I could do what I usually do, which is stall until the opportunity dies on its own. It rang twice, then a measured voice picked up on the other end. They introduced themselves, confirmed the case reference, confirmed my identity. Their tone was calm, not warm, not cruel, just professional. It made me more nervous than if they had sounded emotional. Are you in a safe place to talk? The voice asked. My eyes flicked toward the hallway where my girlfriend had gone. Yeah, I answered, hand pressing against my ribs unconsciously. Someone is home, but they know this is happening. They asked quick background details first, work history, connection to Emma. No drama, just fact gathering, like filling in blanks on a form. Then they steered straight to the night of the celebration. Did your supervisor ever use job consequences to pressure you? My tongue felt thick, but I made myself speak clearly. She brought up disciplinary action against my fiancé at the time, I said. She showed me an email with a serious error and implied escalation. She then offered to keep it quiet if I met her in a room. Saying it in that plain order made my stomach twist. There was no way to hide behind poetic language on a call. I heard the faint tapping of keys on the other end. They let the silence sit so the weight of it settled. Did you feel you could refuse and keep your partner's career safe? They asked. Not some generic "were you scared," but that exact angle. I closed my eyes and pictured the elevator doors again. I believed she would punish Emma if I refused, I answered. Did you ever explicitly say no to her advances? They continued. My face heated even though no one could see me. I said I did not want this, I admitted. I also stayed, which undercuts that sentence a lot. There was a pause, longer this time than more tapping. After the initial incident, did you maintain communication with this supervisor? They asked. Outside of strictly necessary work matters, I mean. That question felt like a spotlight straight on my worst choices. I could have lied. They had no way to see the emails I deleted from my account. Emma had turned in her copies, not mine. But the thread I forwarded tonight was still in my girlfriend's inbox. Yes, I answered, voice dull but clear. I emailed her afterward to keep her comfortable with me. I checked in on her work travel. I thanked her for minimizing the report. I tried to keep her on my side so she never flipped. Saying it like that made me feel like I should sit on the floor. On the other end, they did not gasp or judge out loud. They just kept typing document. In the way, I paired self-preservation with fear. Their neutrality forced me to hear myself without sympathy points. So you experienced pressure that night, they summarized. And you also engaged afterward in a way that complicated the dynamic. They let that hang for a beat without filling it in. Is that a fair characterization from your point of view? It was brutally accurate, which almost made me laugh. Yeah, I replied after a long inhale. That is the first time someone has described it without sugar or pitchforks. It is not flattering, but it is honest. They asked if Emma ever knew about the hotel before everything exploded. I told them no, that she only saw the photo later. They asked if I ever reported Lauren to anyone in management. I told them no again, and each no shrank me a little smaller. In between questions, they explained the scope of the review. Apparently, Emma was not the only person raising concerns about Lauren. There were other stories, different shapes, same theme of leverage. Hearing that made my chest feel tight in a new way. So I was not uniquely targeted. I was part of a pattern, one of several people she pulled into her games. That knowledge gave me a strange mix of relief and disgust. Relief that I was not special, disgust that I did not speak sooner. Would you be willing to share copies of any written exchanges? They asked. I told them I still had the thread we had just opened. I also told them I had already forwarded it to my current partner. That detail mattered more to me than to them, but I said it anyway. They thanked me for cooperating, for using specifics instead of vague impressions. Saying thank you for this kind of confession felt odd. When the call ended, my hand was cramped around the phone. I stared at the blank call screen for a full 10 seconds. From the hallway, my girlfriend's voice floated over, tentative. Are you done? She asked, not stepping into view yet. Yeah, I answered, throat raw. It is over for now, at least the talking part. She came back into the room, studying my expression like an X-ray. How much did you give them? She asked, pulling out a chair. Headline version, or the kind that actually stings when you read it? Her eyes dared me to give her anything but the second one. I told them about the threat. I started slowly. I told them I stayed anyway. I told them I reached out afterward. I watched her face for any flicker of suspicion. It is all in their notes now, including the travel messages. She squinted, thinking through the gaps. Did you admit you never reported her when you had chances? She asked. Yes, I answered at once. They asked, I own that, no excuses. Some of the tension in her shoulders loosened a hair. Did it feel like they saw you as some noble whistleblower? She asked. The question held an edge I probably deserved. No, I said, more like a messed up piece of a larger train wreck. She actually snorted at that, one short involuntary sound. That is probably the most accurate description of you in this story, she said. Not demon, not saint, just a cog that finally squeaked loud enough. There was no kindness in it, but also no extra venom. We sat in silence for a minute while that settled. I wanted to reach for her hand, I kept mine flat. The old reflex still pushed toward reassurance and contact. The new version of me tried to respect the space she clearly needed. You realize Emma choosing to give them your name took courage too, she said. She opted to drag you into this when she could have left you out. That means she wants the whole picture on record, not just her side. That thought made my stomach do a weird flip. I am glad she did, I replied, surprising myself a little. For a long time I told myself she just saw me as trash. Now I know she saw me as part of the proof in a way. That did not absolve me, but it anchored me differently in the story. Do you feel better now? My girlfriend asked, head tilting. Now that someone officially wrote you down as a target too. Her voice was curious, not mocking, which caught me off guard. I took a second to answer instead of blurting the first thing. I feel less alone in the facts, I guess, I said. Not lighter, not cleaner, just less like I made the whole thing up. For years I swung between I was used and I am disgusting. Today it feels like both can be true at once. She watched me while I stumbled through that explanation. Welcome to how the rest of us live, she said quietly. Most real stories sit in the middle, ugly and complicated. Yours just has more collateral damage than most. I nodded because there was nothing to dispute in that. For a moment, I imagined what internet strangers would do with this saga. Half would call me trash and move on. The other half would write essays defending or condemning Emma or Lauren. You are going to post this somewhere, aren't you? She asked suddenly. I blinked, thrown. What makes you say that? I asked, genuinely curious. She gave me a thin smile that did not reach her eyes. You already wrote parts of it in that note, she reminded me. You are clearly rehearsing lines in your head when you talk. You want an outside verdict because mine is not enough for you. She was not wrong again, which is annoying. I want a mirror that does not love me and does not hate me, I admitted. I do not trust my own self-image right now. Everyone close to it is either burnt or biased, including me. Anonymous people can still be cruel, but at least they are fresh. She inhaled through her nose, let it out slowly. I am not going to tell you not to write it, she said. If anything, putting it all in one place might help you see patterns. Just do not use the internet as a permission slip to keep hurting people. That last line landed like a warning label on my forehead. Fair, I murmured. I will write it like a confession, not a defense brief. Saying that out loud means you get to call me out if I fail. Her gaze softened just a little at the word confession. That is the only tone that even has a chance with me now, she said. If I read your post and it sounds like PR, we are done. She tapped the closed laptop like it was a lie detector. We drifted into a strange quiet after that. She picked up her phone to check something unrelated for once. I stretched out on the couch with the blanket and stared at the ceiling. Sleep did not show up obviously, but I shut my eyes anyway. Somewhere in that restless space between night and morning, I decided. If I was going to write this story, it had to be messy. Not the trimmed version I told new partners. Not the dramatized one where I was only broken, never cruel. So later, when the sun finally forced us both up, I opened a browser. My girlfriend sat at the other end of the couch with her coffee. She pretended to scroll through news, but her attention kept sliding over. I could feel her watching me type the first line. My girlfriend does not trust me because I was pushed into cheating on my ex-fiance years ago. I stared at that sentence for a full minute. Then I deleted pushed into and wrote. Because I cheated on my ex-fiance years ago during a situation with power and threats. My fingers hovered, then added. And I stayed quiet about the parts that made me look willing. That was the line that made my girlfriend put her mug down slowly. She did not smile, but she did not look away either. I kept writing. I talked about the hotel without using excuses as shields. I mentioned the follow-up emails without skipping the worst phrases. I included the investigation email and the call I had just finished. Every time I caught myself softening a detail to make me sympathetic, I stopped. I put the uglier version back in, even when it made me wince. I wrote Emma's initials instead of her full name to keep some distance. I kept Lauren's role clear without turning her into a cartoon villain. At one point, my girlfriend cleared her throat. "Let me know when you finish," she said. "I want to read it before you hit post." That offer scared me more than the idea of strangers reading it. When I finally stopped typing, my hands ached. I slid the laptop toward her without saying anything. She took it, pulled her knees up, and started from the beginning. I watched every micro reaction like a nervous director watching a screening. She winced in the places I expected, rolled her eyes in a few others. There was a line where I had still been too gentle on myself. She caught it, of course. "You soften this part," she said, turning the screen for me. It was where I described the morning after the hotel. I had written I went home racked with guilt but hoping Emma was safe. She looked at me unimpressed. "Try again," she said. "You also went home relieved you got away with it." She was right. I changed the sentence to include that relief, that disgusting satisfaction. When she saw the new version, she gave a small nod. "That sounds like the guy I am actually dating," she said quietly. By the time she reached the last paragraphs, her expression had shifted. Less fury, more exhaustion, a hint of something like grudging respect. Not for what I did, but maybe for how I was finally framing it. She closed the laptop with a soft snap and handed it back. "Post it exactly like this," she said. "Do not edit it again after people start responding, just read. And do not use the comments to hunt for absolution." Her eyes bored into mine on that last rule. "What am I supposed to look for then?" I asked, confused. She shrugged one shoulder. "Patterns," she said, "blind spots you still have, places you pretend not to understand. Also, maybe stories from people who got hurt by someone like you." That last part made my chest tighten in a different way. Why? Imagining strangers writing about their own Laurens and their own me's. It sounded painful, but also like something I might actually need. Because my guilt had been very centered around me until now. So yeah, I posted it. I hit submit and watched the spinning icon for a second. A part of me hoped the site would crash and swallow it. It did not. It went up live for whoever wanted to read. My girlfriend stayed next to me while the first responses trickled in. She did not read over my shoulder, just stayed present. I saw everything I expected all at once. Trash victim, both can be true, run girl, therapy dude. Some comments hurt, some felt weirdly accurate, some were just noise. The ones that stayed with me were not even about me. They were the ones from people who had been coerced and still blamed themselves. And the ones from people who had been cheated on and never got closure. Reading those, I finally understood something basic. For years, I had graded myself on a curve. Compared to Lauren, I was kind. Compared to a perfect partner, I was a wreck. What I had never done was sit with the fact that my girlfriend lives with the outcome, not the context. She has my choices in her bed, in her messages, in her nervous system. Whether or not I was under pressure does not erase that. It just explains why the story feels like a car crash instead of a simple affair. So where are we now? She still checks my explanations for holes. I still flinch when my phone buzzes from numbers I do not know. We go to couples counseling once a week, which is humbling and brutal. She has not forgiven me, not fully, maybe not even half. Some days she leans on my shoulder without thinking. Other days she pulls her arm away like she touched a stove. I try not to read too much into either kind of day. I stopped using the phrase forced to cheat completely. When people ask why my engagement ended, I tell them. I cheated during a situation where my ex's boss used her job as leverage, I say. I could have reacted differently and I did not, and I am still paying for it. Sometimes their faces shift from sympathy to confusion to judgment. Sometimes they do not know what to do with that much gray. Honestly, I do not always know either. But at least I am not pretending it was black and white anymore. And that brings me back to why I am typing this here. Because I live with a partner who wakes up next to both versions of me. The scared younger guy who froze. And the man who wrote, "I keep thinking about you," to the person who hurt him. She is trying to decide if those two can exist in one body she shares a life with. I am trying to decide if I can trust myself not to edit reality again. So I am asking people who have been on both sides of betrayal. Is someone like me worth betting on, or is my girlfriend right to keep one foot out the door?